This is going to be a discussion on the timeless fight between narratives and math. This is very important for your journey into the world of finance because knowing the difference between these two may just well mean the difference between life and death, or whether you spend your entire career in one field or another. They do both have their cons and pros, so hopefully we'll give you all the information in this lecture so that you know which one is right for you. I certainly know which one's best for me, so let's get into it. So when you enter the crypto market, or when you do any sort of financial research whatsoever, you are going to be bombarded with torrents of information when you get on the internet. You're going to have news, you're going to have charts, you're going to have information left, right, and center. People are going to be sharing all types of information. You're going to be completely overwhelmed, and you're not going to be very sure what to look at. Now, when we're looking at which information to use, there are two very distinct categories of information that you can look at and ask yourself, hey, is this really something that I want to use? Is it something that's coherent with my values and what I feel I'm going to be best at? A lot of people may think that they understand what information is useful to them, but I would argue that often your instincts are wrong. And really what we're going to do here is help you understand how to put all information that you find into two distinct buckets so that you know what you can pay attention to and what you should ignore. Because remember, knowing what to ignore as well is a massive leverage technique in order to save you time in the market so that you know what you can spend your time on. All of our time is scarce. So with that being said, let's look at the two different investing analysis methods. One is qualitative and the other is quantitative. So the first one is qualitative information. Qualitative information refers to the qualities of things. This is an interpretive factor. In this form, you get to think all about logic, rumors, using your intelligence. You can make deductions. You can go off just random thoughts that enter your mind for all you care about. You can listen to a lot of people talking and you can make a judgment off of them if they're experts. You can listen to people talking and make a judgment off what's going to happen if they're not experts, and maybe you do the opposite. For example, a classic trope is when the cryptocurrency market is going up and everybody says, oh my God, my Uber delivery boy just made $1 million in crypto. And you heard that story. That is an example of qualitative information. And then at that point, you sell all your Bitcoin because you know the market can't keep going up. So the advantages of qualitative information. Often the advantages can be things like it is the only thing that matters in the market. Sometimes you'll have a massive piece of news or an announcement of some sort, and this overwhelms everything else in the market. It sends the market flying up, it sends it flying down, and no other piece of research can matter because this announcement, or whatever it is in particular, is so important that it completely overrides every other consideration. Another thing that qualitative analysis is good for is that if you manage to find the right form of qualitative analysis, or if you get the right piece of information, you can make a massive amount of profits as well. If you have a special piece of information that nobody knows, closer to insider trading, not that we advocate for that, obviously it's illegal in most countries on earth, but if you were to have a piece of insider information, that's an example of qualitative information that can lead to a massive gain, or protect you from a massive loss if you were to jump out of an investment. So you can see here that qualitative information certainly does have its advantages when it is the right time and place for it. So the cons of qualitative analysis. First of all, it's very difficult to learn. You have to be trusting your intelligence and your experience, which can take an entire lifetime to develop. This means that it's probably not going to be a very fast process in order to collect all this information and know for sure whether or not it's actionable. Also, another disadvantage of qualitative information is that it cannot be tested for. So if you have a piece of information, it's very difficult to test whether it was the same piece of information that you had at an earlier date, exactly so that you know whether or not it's going to have the effect that you intend for it, or whether it's going to do the thing that you think it's going to do. It's all based off kind of best guesses and intuition a lot of the time. Also, and this is the main one, this is the biggest con of qualitative analysis, is that it is heavily affected by biases. So that when you're looking at the market and when you're looking at the information and you're trying to make a judgment call on what it actually means, what you're actually seeing is a version of the truth, which is being colored by all of your biases and your predispositions and the things that you are already thinking about, whether or not it's being filtered through intellect or whether it's being filtered through biases. 99% of the time it's being filtered through biases, but people are just not consciously aware of this effect, so they genuinely believe that it's coming from a place of logic. Therefore, they become very much blind to the faulty decision-making abilities that they have when trying to implement qualitative information in the market. For this reason, I believe that qualitative analysis is highly flawed when most people are trying to apply it. And for that reason, it's not really an analysis style that I choose to use. I prefer to keep away from it because I understand that the human animal is very difficult to override in these situations, to the degree that I don't think it would be that useful really even at a high level. So looking at the screen right now, you can see that I've got a few different screenshots here. These are examples of qualitative analysis. Mostly it's news. It's difficult for me to show pictures of people having conversations, but generally this is an example of what you look at when you're looking for qualitative analysis. You're looking at people's opinions, you're looking for what they think, you're aggregating a lot of speech information, a lot of text information, and you're just trying to make best judgments on what you believe to be your version of the truth that you believe to be most true. And whether or not that's subject to your biases or not, that's something that you have to be at peace with. The next form of analysis is quantitative analysis. This represents the measuring of the quantity of things. Therefore, it is the study of numbers. Quantitative analysis involves a lot of measuring of things. So this is measuring of price information. This is measuring of financial information. This is measuring the effect of personal information from people. So, this is, for example, if you're in a social media company like Facebook or Instagram, and you're measuring the behavior of all the people, how often they click on buttons, how long they stay on certain pages. This is an example of quantitative information for the purposes of data aggregation. And of course, this is a method of analysis in the markets as well. So if you look onto the screen right now, what I've got here is a bunch of examples of quantitative analysis. So this is all information which is based on data. This is all information which is based on numbers and patterns. And you can see that there's a lot of information coming at you here on the screen. Often the main problem with quantitative analysis is really the noise and the amount of information that you have coming at you. When it comes down to it, creating quantitative information really isn't that difficult. It is the filtering of the quantitative information and knowing what to look at, which is most important. So the cons of quantitative analysis can include things like it's very inflexible, it's too cold and harsh, it doesn't take into consideration external factors. Perhaps there is some special circumstances that need to be taken into consideration where the quantitative information, where the measurements that you're taking, they don't apply anymore, or maybe they apply more so in a certain situation. Obviously, this would be an example of when you try and apply even more quantitative information in order to classify these circumstances. However, this is a good point where often you have fundamentally driven events that completely override quantitative information. A great example, this may become dated in the future, however, the FTX debacle, where FTX actually became insolvent and collapsed. During that time, I myself know of a lot of systems, quantitative systems out there on the internet that were long or calling for a bull move in the market during that insolvency. Therefore, you can see that this was actually a perfect moment to display how quantitative systems often do not perform in the way that you expect them to do, especially when there is a qualitative twist on the environment that you're currently trading in. This means that some environments, the quantitative information will be telling you something, however, you'll have a fundamentally or a qualitatively driven flow event that actually completely overrides it. So this is one of the downsides to quantitative information. Now, the pros of quantitative information and analysis. The pros are that it can be learned quickly if taught with focus and concentration. It doesn't require an entire lifetime worth of knowledge in order to act upon this information very quickly. That means if you're motivated and you're enterprising and you enter the market, then you can learn this information very quickly and begin applying it whenever you want. And also another advantage is that it's testable. So If you have this information, you can look in the past and you can see whether or not it was actually useful for you. You can see whether it was signaling in the way that it should be signaling. You can form a hypothesis, and then you can test that, kind of like the scientific method. So this allows you to know for sure whether or not it would have worked in the past, or whether your assumptions are correct when you're using the numbers for your intended purpose. One of the best advantages of quantitative information is that it actually removes the need for human biases, human subjectivity, all the faulty decision-making processes that you have. Potentially, this has the ability to completely remove those. Now, there's a little bit of a caveat here, and that is as you're designing these systems, the biases that you have as an individual are going to be naturally induced into the system to a certain degree. So you can see here, if we can aggregate things together, if we can eliminate our biases, we can test for significance, and we can learn it quickly, what better method should we have to look at the market? Personally, I think that this is the superior method, and this is the method that I choose. Quantitative information is the most appropriate for almost all approaches for the market. It's good for beginners, it's good for the experienced, and I think it's the one which gives us the most chance of success. I'll see you soon, guys. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next video.